Finally tonight, the long view. Yes, this past year, though one for the history books, did bring us a lot of bad news. But that's just the way it was in 1968, a very difficult year when 40 years ago tonight, on Christmas Eve, American astronauts were orbiting the moon for the first time. As Brian Williams reports now, the flight of Apollo 8 helped our nation see itself more clearly then, and perhaps even now.
The pall of destruction hung over the entire length of South Vietnam.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
Senator County has been shot.
1968 was one of the most tumultuous years of the post-World War II era. A time of war and assassination, civil unrest, and deep political division. But as 68 came to a close, the nation had occasion to soar with the flight of Apollo 8.
The men who will fly the Apollo 8, Air Force Colonel Frank Borman, Navy Captain James Lovell, and Major William Anders.
The three American astronauts became the first three humans to travel to the moon. Their mission, flying around the moon, was a giant step toward landing on it, the goal set 7 years earlier by President John F. Kennedy.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Apollo 8 reached lunar orbit on Christmas Eve day. What the astronauts saw through their window was a lifeless, desolate wasteland. As they examined the surface of the moon, they looked back toward home and saw Earth in a whole new light.
Oh, my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, is that pretty. Hand me a roll of color quick. Oh, man. Oh, I got it right. Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
It was an unprecedented view of our beautiful, fragile home planet rising above the lunar horizon. One of the most powerful images of the 20th century, and it almost didn't happen.
There was nothing in the flight plan about taking pictures of the Earth. People on the ground had not thought of a potential impact of that.
And what would the astronauts say just a few hours later to a huge Christmas Eve television viewing audience, an estimated 2 billion people around the world?
The only instructions we got was do something appropriate. And to me, that just indicated the trust that the NASA had in us and the freedom that we had as Americans.
They chose to say this.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
The opening lines from the book of Genesis in the Bible.
And God said, let there be light. And there was light.
The well-known atheist Madalyn Murray O'Hair famously objected, but most Americans did not, and no one listening that night will ever forget it.
All three of us were doing our duties, and it wasn't until we got back that we really understood the overall impact of orbiting the moon on Christmas Eve and showing the Earth as it really was, and the fact that we had accomplished something that we had set out to do, and we did it.
Apollo 8 had orbited the moon for just 20 hours, time enough to provide a much-needed lift at the end of a terrible year.
Numerous times in 1968, we've seen the human race at our worst. But near the end of 68, in this last week, we have seen the human race at our best. And at our best, we're pretty good.
And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good Earth.